Hey guys, welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to show you how to drag and drop items inside React.js. As you can see, I have a to-do list in here, so I can drag and drop them. So I can reorder my items inside my to-do list. I can add a new item, so let's add a new item in here, and as you can see, I can reorder them. So we are going to use Framer Motion, which is a cool library in this project, and also I'm able to remove each and every item. So now if I add these items again, so if I refresh the page, you can see my items are still in here. So if I reorder that and refresh the page, you can see no changes will happen in here because my data have been stored inside the local storage. Okay, so now let's get started. Okay guys, I'm inside my VS Code. As you can see, I have already generated the React application. So now let's run our application. I'm gonna open the terminal, and in here let's run npm run dev. Okay, now you can see my application is running. So at first I'm going to make a simple to-do list, and then we're going to work on this reorder which is coming from Framer Motion. Okay, so I'm going to make a new folder here. I'm going to call this components. Okay, and we need to have a new component here, and let's call this to-do list. And let's import it inside this app.js6. Okay, so at first I'm going to bring everything in the middle, so let's make it a section with the class name of. Okay, let's close this tag, and I'm going to give it a width of full, height of screen. Let's give it grade, and place item should be center. Okay, now you can see my text is in the middle. So at first we are going to have an input with a button. So up here I'm going to have another div, and let's have an input here with placeholder of to do, and also let's have a button app. Okay, alright, and I'm gonna give a class name for this input. Let's give it a border, and border color should be gray and 500. Okay, and let's give it a padding of 4. Alright, I'm gonna get rid of this outline, so outline is going to be none. Okay, so now let's style this button. Actually I wanna add some width, so width is going to be 30 rem. Okay, so for this button let's give a class name. I'm gonna change the background color to be blue and 400. Text should be white. Okay, and to make them same size, I'm going to add this a class name flex, and let's check it. Okay, and finally let's give it a width of 7 rem. Okay, now let's give it a hover effect. So hover is going to be opacity of, let's say, 65. Okay, now it's looking better. Let's decrease the width of this input. It seems to be so long, so I'm gonna go for this 25. Okay, now it's looking better. So to get this input data, we are gonna have a new user state hook, value and set. Okay, or let's change this to be to do and set to do. Okay, and it should be an empty string by default, so I'm gonna give it a value of to do, and change is going to be e, and set to do, okay, e dot target dot value. Okay, now we are going to make a new array to actually store all our to-do list. So I'm gonna call this to-dos, set to-dos, use that hook, and it should be an empty array by default. Okay, so at first we need to make a function for this div. Okay, so I'm gonna call it handle add to do, and we are going to set this to do's. Okay, and we are going to get the previous value of this set to do's, and inside this array we are going to split this previous and add a new to do. Okay, so let's pass this inside this button on click and handle to do. So if I inspect the browser here, okay, let's bring it down here. Okay, seems we have an error. Section received through, I believe it is inside here, yeah. So let's remove this extra section from here, and if I refresh the page, okay, so now let's console log this to-dos. Okay, it's currently empty array, so if I add here new to do, click this add, you can see we have a new to do. If I add a new number here, you can see we have 2 items inside our array, and now you can see we have 3 items. So now I'm going to display them here inside this div. I'm going to map through this to do's. So now let's add a new div here, and we're going to map through this to do's. To-dos.map, you're gonna get each and every item. Okay, and also I'm gonna get the index. So let's make a new component and call this to do. I'm gonna pass this item to this component, and finally this key should be indexed. Okay, so now down here I'm gonna make this component, and let's receive this item, and finally we're going to return a new div in here. So inside this paragraph we are going to print this item, and we need to have a button to remove our to do. Okay, so now if I try to add a new to do here, you can see we have the to do with the remove button. So let's give it a class name of flex. Item should be center and justify is going to be between. Alright, let's give it a border, and border in gray and 500. I'm gonna give it a padding of 4. Okay, and let's give it a class name flex column, and gap is going to be 5. Okay, also we need to add a margin top of 5. Alright, so if I try to add new text, you can see here is my new text. Okay, and now whenever we click this button, we want this input to be clear, so let's remove this console log and set to do should be back to empty string. Okay, so if I add a new text in here and click this add, you can see we don't have any text inside this input. Alright, so now our to-do list is ready. So let's work on this reorder, which is coming from Framer motion. As you can see, here is a description about reorder. So create drag to reorder effects with a simple set of components. The reorder components can be used to create drag to reorder list like reorderable tabs or to do. So basically we are going to use this reorder to drag and drop. So down here, this is how you can implement it, and in here we have a simple example of this drag and drop. So as you can see, I can drag it and everything is working perfectly. So now let's see how we can use this. So at first, this is our items which we have in here, which is this to-dos array. So whenever we add a new item, the item will go inside this array. Okay, we have it, and we are going to have a reorder group. So it will be like the parent of our items component. Like, let's say it is this div. Okay, and we are going to map through our items, which is our useState hook, and instead of this div inside our component, which is this one, we are going to have this reorder item, and we are not required to use any flexbox anymore, because by default this reorder component has this flexbox. Okay, so now let's implement it. At first, let's scroll up in here, and I'm gonna change this div to be reorder coming from Framer motion. So if you haven't installed this Framer motion, just open the terminal, and inside the terminal just write npm install framer-motion. Okay, and this library will be installed. Alright, I have already installed this library. So following this reorder, we are going to write a group. Okay, and now as you can see, we need to specify to what axis we want to drag and drop. So we have X and Y. Okay, and we need to pass our values, which is our useState hook items, and also we need to pass this set items to on reorder. So now let's do that. I'm going to write here values. It's gonna be our to-dos. Make sure to add this one, this empty array, not this one, because this belongs to our input. Okay, and following that, we need to have a function on order. It should be set to-dos. Okay, once we are done with this one, we need to move to our single component. I'm gonna change this to reorder dot item. Okay, and also as you can see, inside here we need to have our key and the value, which is our single item. Okay, so I have already added the key in here, which is this one. So inside here, I'm just going to pass this value to be equal to item. Okay, so now let's check it. I'm gonna add here new to do number 1. Let's copy this. As you can see, it's working. So I'm gonna write here new to do number 2. So now if I drag and drop it, you can see the drag and drop is not working. So if I open this reorder and open this inside this sandbox, so as you can see inside this app.tsx, they did the same thing and they make a new component which is called item. So inside this item, if I open this, as you can see, we need to import this use motion value. So it is coming from Framer motion. So basically it will track the y-axis of our component. As you can see, inside this style it passed this y. Okay, so now let's do that. So inside here I'm going to write count y, use motion value, and it's gonna be 0 by default. So now we are going to have a style property in here and just pass this y. Okay, once we are done with this, we need to add our direction here. So axis should be y. So instead of this y, you can add x to actually drag and drop an x position. So for now, because we are going to drag and drop from top to bottom, we are going to use this y. Okay, so now if I refresh the page, as you can see, our data are lost. So to make it easy, I'm gonna add this data inside the local storage. So up here, let's define a new use effect hook. Okay, and inside here we are going to get this local storage dot set item, and it's gonna be to-dos. We're going to store our to-dos data inside this JSON.string file, and it should be to-dos. Okay, so we are going to pass this to-dos in here also, and instead of this empty array, we are going to get JSON parse local storage dot get item and the name of our to-do list, which we are going to store inside the local storage. Okay, it should be to-dos. So now let's check it. If I add item 1, if I refresh the page, as you can see, our data are still in the browser. Okay guys, I just removed all my data inside the local storage. As you can see, I got this error. So this error is because we are going to assign this local storage. So if there is no item inside here, we want to display this empty array. Now you can see this error is gone. So if I add item 1, item 2, and if I add item 3 in here, let's work on that. You can see we have a simple problem in here. So to solve this problem, first of all, if I scroll down, we don't need this flex anymore. Let's remove them. Okay, and instead of this gap, we are going to add space y and 5. Okay, now you can see it's still the same. So to solve this problem, we are going to pass this item as the key of our component. Okay, so if I pass here item, now if I refresh the page, and as you can see, my to-do list is empty. So if I add here item 1, item 2, and item 3, and now you can see I'm able to drag and drop this. But the only problem is that inside the React.js, if we have the same key, then it will cause an error. For example, you can see I have this item 3. So if I add another item 3 in here, you can see I will get an error immediately because our key and the item is the same. So to avoid this problem, we need to set a condition. Okay, so inside here we are going to check if to-dos dot include our to-do, then we are going to simply return a new alert. We are going to say this item exists. Otherwise, we are going to add a new item. Okay, so if I refresh the page and let's add item 1. Okay, it should be includes. Now you can see the error is gone. Item 1 and let's check it inside our local storage. Okay, you can see we have this item. So if I add item 2 and if I refresh the page, okay, I don't know why it's removing. So now let's figure it out. This is because I didn't add this to-dos in here. So let's add this to-dos again, and now you can see we have these items, and if I refresh the page, it's not disappearing. So now you can see I can drag and drop, but if I add item 3 again, you can see we are going to get this alert saying this item exists. So let's change this to be 4. Now you can see I'm able to drag and drop these items. Now let's work on removing an item. So down here I'm going to have a new function handle remove, and actually let's add it inside our single component because our button is inside here. It should be equal to an arrow function, and we need to receive our set to-dos. Okay, and let's get it here. Okay, so now inside this function I'm going to set this to-dos. We're going to get the previous value, and now we need to filter out this previous and check if this previous is not equal to our item. So let's filter out this previous, each and every to-do, and to-do is not equal to our item. Okay, so now let's pass this function to this button. It should be on click function. Alright, so now if I click this item 2, you can see the item 2 is gone. If I remove this item 3, it will be gone, and item 4. Okay, so if I add this item 2 again, I can drag and drop it. Okay, and since I removed this background color, so let's add this BG white. Now you can see it's working perfectly. Alright guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. So if you want to watch more videos like this, make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and give a subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video.